A very warm welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, I will give you an answer to a question that is Ionic App a compiled app or an hybrid app? Well, if you do not know about these two terms also, the compiled and hybrid applications, then don't worry, in this particular lecture you will understand each and everything. So let's get started with that. Now at first, let's assume that this is our app screen and this is called a view that we see on our mobile devices. Now within this we have already seen we have our code and the Ionic framework is out there into our application, and with that, using the capacitor or Cordova as a bridge, we produce native applications such as Android and iOS. We can even create web apps also for PWAs and the desktop applications also. But out here, the compiled and hybrid application is only applicable in case of native applications, definitely for Android and iOS. So let's look at that. What is it all about? So basically, the conversion of your code into the native platforms can be done using two methods. The first one is compile to native code. Whenever you are writing a code, it is getting compiled to the respective native platform, then it is called compiled application. Let's take an example for that. Say like there is a button that you have created, and that button which you have created, when that is getting compiled or when that is used in suppose say Android Studio or Xcode, then it is getting compiled to the native button. When you are publishing the application, then you are getting the actual output and the code for that. When you are compiling that code, you are getting the proper code for that particular respective platform. Say like there is a button, the code for the button in Android Studio using Java or Kotlin, it is showing that particular code out there, and along with that for iOS also in Xcode you are getting the particular code for that particular button, so that it can be wrapped into a real native device button. And that is what the compile to native code actually means. It is compiling your code, whether you're writing in JavaScript or anything, it is getting compiled to the native code. So that actually is a native code itself. Alright, and this kind of compiled applications can be made using some platforms such as Flutter or React Native. They compile the code that is written out there into the native code. Alright, so let's look at the next method and see what is the difference out there. So the next method is wrapping into app with a web view. So what is a web view basically? Now let's take an example. Let's say in YouTube, in the description you have a link. If you click on that link, it will not open that link in the browser itself, but it will open it up in the in-app browser, right? You must have seen that. Well, that is not actually a browser, it is a native feature itself, and it is just as a wrapper because there is no header where you have the URL or something. It is just like a wrapper out there, and you can design it on your own way so that it will look pretty nice, right? So that is a native feature which is out there. And that's where Ionic comes into play. It is using that web view, well that is called actually a web view, and that is what it is using to build the mobile applications and also the PWA and desktop applications also. That web view is being used. Well, for desktop application you don't need to do that. Even for PWA also it works with the URL itself. But for the native applications also it is using the same. That is why we have one code base for all the things. That is not available in the Flutter and React Native. And you have already noticed what I'm talking about. Basically the example for this kind of applications is Ionic framework, right? So this is the whole thing that is being working, and your question is already answered that Ionic applications are basically the hybrid applications, because hybrid applications are those applications which is running on a web view. So this is how Ionic is actually working in a web view. So this is actually a web view. So this view is also called a web view, right? Now let's check it out. What is a web view? So what is a web view? Let's say this is our application and this is a web app. Now it is running on our native device, and this native app which is rendering the web view widget that loads your web application. So that is how actually it is running. That doesn't mean that it has some issues. It works exactly the same and there is hardly any lag. So now we are going to see what is the benefit of using this kind of application. Will it differ in performance with the native applications or with other platforms or not? Let's check it out. So the first benefit is it is smaller in size. As this is using a web view, basically all the code is written in JavaScript or any kind of framework that is using the JavaScript. So the size is pretty smaller, right? And it is even faster also, because you might be thinking that if it is a web view, it might be little slower than the native application, but it is not the case. The modern day devices are too fast, and you will see hardly any difference between a native device and this web view application. So I must say that Ionic is pretty fast, and I'm saying it from my experience, it is quite good and pretty fast. The transitions are pretty fast, and you don't get a look and feel of a web view, don't see any lag in there. And that's where comes the next advantage of it, which is negligible performance issue. 99% of the times the performance of the application does not matter, and I mean it. Why is that so? Because there is hardly any lag. You have seen the evolution of Ionic. In the previous versions there was slight lag, say like in Ionic 2 or something, there was also very minimum. But in Ionic 5, up till Ionic 5 and above, there is hardly any lag. You will see it is more advancing towards the native application itself. No lag, very negligible. 99.9% times you won't see that. Alright, so that is the thing, and it is fast too. That's what add on to the performance of it. It is quite fast, and you can build larger applications using Ionic framework, so that is a big advantage of it. Then the next thing is that the best advantage for which Ionic framework should be used is the advantage of using the cross-platform applications, which is made easier using Ionic framework. As you have already seen, we can build multiple platforms using the same code base and the same framework, right? So this is the whole advantages of Ionic framework, and you have also understood that this is not slower. If you have that kind of concept in mind, just get rid of the thought, because this is not actually. Alright, so this is just a glimpse of our complete course on Ionic from beginner to advanced level, and I'll just explain you now how to avail this course. So it is available on Udemy. There is a special limited period offer going on for a few days, in which you will get around 95 to 97% off, which brings the course price down to, the price may vary after a few days. So do enroll in this course as soon as possible, and I'm eagerly waiting to see you in this particular course. And if you have any queries regarding this, I'm always there to help, so you can reach me out whenever you like to. So thank you very much.